right now.
Well, hello, Don.
Hello, Ben. How the heck are you, man?
I'm doing awesome. And hello, EXP. We're excited to be with you again. We're back, and we had such a great time with you last time. EXP was crazy enough to ask us back again, and we're never going to turn that down to spend time with all of you. So today, we're going to kick off a series called Paying the Price of Success, the surprisingly simple steps to growing a big business. Now, we thought this was timely, Don, right? In our conversations, because we're coming to the end of the year. And for a lot of real estate agents, they're planning next year. They're looking forward to either how do I replicate what I did this year, or how do I do better next year than I did this year? Both can be daunting when you're faced with them, right?
Absolutely. How do I reconstruct what didn't work, or how do I, keep the same or, increase, right? I mean, the market's going to be the market, but what we do with it is going to be our own doing. And it's time when people start thinking about planning and what it looks like. And while we really are not talking about business planning, we are talking about the elements of what's going to go into the plan. And it's going to really talk to what it takes to be successful and build that big business that is exactly the way you want it.
And I think the other big part here, Don, that we've talked about, and we're going to dive into here, because this is a multiple part series. We've got part one today. We have part one coming next month in November in just a few short weeks. So stay tuned. You'll hear more about that. But we're going to walk through a series. This is not intended to be fluff or 30,000 foot flyover view only. Like, we're going to get down into the nitty gritty. You're going to leave here with transformation and change. And so we have to start today by even defining what the heck success is and what it's not. So are you ready to jump into this, Don?
Yeah, let's do it, man. Always
All right,
happy to work with you. Let's do it.
What we know is, we know that failure is seen by a lot of people as the opposite of success. Would you agree with that?
That people see it that way? Absolutely. Yeah, for sure, for sure.
Now, here's something interesting about failure, and I don't remember who to accredit this quote to, Don, but I know it's not mine. I'll put it that way. But somebody said, failure is not always the opposite of success. Oftentimes, it's a part of the process. Right. So a lot of times we look at failure, or some people can look at failure, people you and I coach. We look at failure and we almost get defeated because we say, oh, see, like, I knew I couldn't do that, or they were right. They told me I wasn't going to succeed in this. And it's like, well, hold on, maybe we need to redefine failure as well.
Yeah. And I think that we really have to look at, how we see failing. And again, we're going to talk about failing, mistakes, that kind of stuff, but it's really part of the learning process. It's just what we don't want to do is take any longer to do it than we have to. We don't want to make any more mistakes than we have to. And, Jim Rohn taught me a long time ago, learning from other people's mistakes and learning from other people's wisdom is part of the process for getting there faster. So today we're going to talk a lot about that. But yes, failure is a part of it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So we know that there's a formula for failure. Now, anybody that watches any kind of speaker or trainer or presenter, they always want to talk about success because it's the thing that tickles the ears and it's the sexier cousin, right? But the problem is we have to understand failure too, because we not only need to know what we're working towards, we have to be able to identify what we're wanting to avoid. And so there's a formula for failure. And Dennis Waitley is where I heard this one. And I thought this was just perfect. He says, the formula for failure, the way that you can get failure consistently every time, it's a few errors in judgment repeated every day. A few errors in judgment repeated every day. My favorite way to talk about this, Don, with clients is a lot of people think failure is one thing, one event, one point in time. And what's interesting is failure's likened to death by mosquito bites. It's never one thing. It's multiple small things that in the middle of experiencing them, they may only just be a little bit of an itch or an annoyance. But you start stacking those together, well, then we have a real problem.
Well, and I was thinking, failings lead to failure. Now, failings also lead to learning if we're clever, if we're smart, if we're paying attention. But little failings, mosquito bites, supersize me. That's the movie that comes to mind, right? It's not the going to McDonald's one time. It's it's doing it and doing it and doing it and doing it. Pretty soon we end up, obese, unhealthy, etc. It's little things that those errors in judgment again and again.
Yeah, and they stack, right? So this is
They
the
do.
other thing I thought was interesting in conversations about this, that failure, we've identified it's not a single event, it's multiple things that lead to it. But the way it was put to me is failings, plural, lead to failure. So failings, like little things every day, whether, like you said, with the health stuff, whether it's I eat a little bit more than I need every single day, or I work out a little bit less than I should every day, or I drink a little bit more than I should whatever it is, it's those small little micro decisions that cumulatively come together to make a big failure. So we're wanting to avoid that.
Yeah, that's the word. It's cumulative, right? It adds up. And that's what we have to remember. It's not any one day we go, I'm on it. It's what are we doing all the time?
Absolutely. Now, this was one of my favorite visuals from our entire slideshow. And I told you this yesterday when we were going through, like, I love this one because what are we talking about here, Don?
Well, we're talking about building a business that serves our life. And I guess the contrast that would be, most agents get up every day and they're all about building the business. They get into real estate, and of course they're not succeeding. What do they want to do? Build a business. They've gotten to a certain point. What do they want to do? Build a business bigger. Almost never do they think about what is the life they're building and how does the business fit around it. So building a business that serves our life is really the essence of, again, closer to what success might look like, right? It's not just being financially successful, business successful. It's really building a life and making sure that this supports that, right?
Absolutely. I think one of the biggest challenges I see in the marketplace, and like you and I were talking yesterday afternoon, for whatever reason, especially inside of real estate, people get really excited at the prospect of building a business and making wealth, which is wonderful. Like, that's why we all get into this, right? We're entrepreneurs. That's a great thing. The problem, though, is they are so fixated on those things that they forget to have a life along the way. And they become this slave to their business in a sense. So they have a job in order to build something. And by the time they get to getting where they want to go and accomplishing what they want to have, they're so sucked into doing the job every single day. They've not had any of the benefit, or very little of the benefit they could have along the way.
Absolutely. We miss the journey. And I think for a lot of people, Ben, I remember starting a very close friend of mine in real estate, and he had 3 kids, or had 2 kids at the time, one on the way, and one in the oven, as they say. And he said to me, I'm not sure real estate's right for me because I'm concerned about what they tell me. It's evenings, it's weekends, it's 24 hours a day, it's on call all the time. And I said, I'm going to tell you my view, which is very different. And that is, I want you to decide how you want your life to look. You tell me how you want your life to look, and I will help you build a business around that. And, that was pretty sexy to him. I mean, he was like, really, you can do that? I said, yeah, absolutely. Because what we know is, and we're going to talk a little bit about time and time management, structure around time, all of that late today, and then also into the second program. But, I think about my own learnings, and I had become very successful. And I met a guy by the name of, I had 2 coaches at the time. I was paying about $75. By the way, since we have the coaching company, we have about $7,500 in coaching going out at that time. And one of them, Dr. Fred Gross, took me aside and said, listen, what do you really want? And I said, I thought it was more money. And he goes, how much more do you need? What do you really want? And I said, I want freedom. And he said, that's time. That's not money. And what I'd done is built my whole life, my business around built my life around my business and had no time. And what he urged me to do, and I'll cut this because we don't have a long time today, but he cut it into 3 segments, 3 different one-day programs with me one-on-one, which by the way, I paid him $3,500 for each day. So I was very copious note-taking. I was very much like, whatever he says, I'm going to do, because I was paying huge money for it. And one of the things he said is, I want you to really put on paper, on a calendar, what you want your time off to be like: family time, weekend time, vacation time, if there's a wedding, like whatever you need, put it all on the calendar. And he said, when we get back together next month, and again, we had other conversations, but this was the gist of my assignment. And when I got back the following month, he said, wow, this is awesome. And I said, this isn't realistic. And one of my thoughts for everybody listening is, think unreasonably. Think outside of the norm, what you think is possible. Think outside, what do you really want? Not what do you know is possible based on how you do things now, based on what the people around you who may not be killing it are doing. Think unreasonably. So I did. I thought unreasonably, put this this calendar together, 3-day weekends, 4-day weekends, 2-week vacations. I hadn't taken a 2-week vacation in like 12 years. And I put all this thing together. And when I got back with him, he said, so now I want you between now and next time to assign these dates, like where you're going 2 weeks, where you're going for a week, where you're going for those 4-day holidays. Don't worry about the 3-day weekends. That's just life. And so he assigned that to me. And of course, after we'd had our discussions, bigger thinking, Ben, that's the key, unreasonable thinking. I did all that. And when I got back the following month with him, he said, now I want you to buy all the tickets, all the cruises and buy the airlines, buy the reservations, get all that stuff done, which to me freaked me out. I mean, and first of all, none of it seemed reasonable. None of it seemed like, how do you run a business on if I'm only doing, what I'm going to be able to do based on this calendar? And what he taught me was a very valuable lesson, which was, and we'll talk about this more in time, but it was really about work expands to fill the time we allow for its completion. And he defined what he called the vacation miracle, which was how do we act before we're leaving for a trip? If like I'm leaving next Friday, how am I on point? And the answer is I'm constantly, no, I can't take that meeting now. Hey, I'd love to, but I can't this week because I'm leaving on Friday. We're so protective. And he said, if you live your life in that place all the time, which is why I want you on vacation, I want you having these 3-day, 4-day holidays, these weeks, weeks out. I want you having all that stuff because that's going to keep you focused. And what happened, and I may have shared the story with you before, but actually my company, my partner and I, we built a company and it was very large. And at the time, we tripled our volume in that year. That next year, we tripled our volume. I took 164 days off, which for me was staggering. I may not be a big deal for most of the people on the, they're watching, but it was a really huge deal for me.
That's a big deal for anybody, I would imagine.
We tripled our volume and Greg and I personally doubled our income. And what was amazing was we worked lots less. Yeah. And so I think it comes down to building a business that serves your life instead of that other way around, which is where you leave little pieces for what's called life left. That's all you got.
Absolutely. And I think this is I think this is one of the big keys, Don, is we have to ask ourselves, and I would challenge everyone watching this right now, you ask yourself this question and write it down, because again, all of this, just hearing it is one thing, writing it down so you can really meditate on it and think through it is another. So write this question down. What do you want your life to look like?
What is success for you based on your values? What do you want for you, your family, the people that are closest to you, the people you say you're working so hard for that then you have no time for if you build it the other way around, which is business first, life second.
Don, I have a coaching client specifically that comes to mind as soon as we're talking about this. And this person has a big why, family, wonderful human being, has the right intentions. Yet they bought into this crap that is the hustle culture, meaning if I just work more, if I just work more hours, if I just grind more, like all these buzzwords that have been put out into the market. And I'm not saying you don't have to work. My point, though, is you can do a lot more of the wrong things and not get success that you're looking for. So we really have to ask ourselves, it starts internally, in my opinion. What do I want my life to look like? And then and only then can we look at our business and say, okay, perfect. Then business, what do you have to look like to make this reality for me in my life? And we get that backwards oftentimes as entrepreneurs. And it doesn't mean you get to skip hard work. It doesn't mean anything of that sort. What it means, though, is you're putting things in proper priority. So you're saying, these are my non-negotiables in life. Then I'm going to see what my business must become or look like in order to make that possible. And then to your point, now all of a sudden I have that vacation ninja syndrome, right? Like I am purposeful and very strategic, and I am not wasting any time. And I'm also not going a bunch of different directions. I have focus and clarity, and I'm moving the business in that direction because I know that if it gets here, that I get what I want over here. The business, or the purpose of business rather, is to fund our perfect life. Our job is not to fund a business. And we get that backwards. And so I just want to make sure that everyone hears that, but you want to write down the question, what do you want your life to look like? Because the formula for success The formula is the same. The destination for each of you listening is different. And it's not right or wrong, but you have to have clarity as to what success means to you. What will it look like? What will it feel like? How will you know when you've arrived there? This is key. Write that down.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
Now, the good news is we talked about failure. Guess what we're also going to talk about?
This is the part everybody likes.
Success.
This is the part everybody likes.
Yeah, this is the fun part, right? If we just did this, we'd have a bunch of people listening, but we wouldn't have meaningful transformation because we have to coach to the whole person. We have to speak to the good parts and the parts that are still in development. Now, success, here's what we know. You don't get what you want. Write this down. You do not get what you want. You attract what you are. You don't get what you want. You attract what you are. Now, Don, this sounds a little airy-fairy. I'm going to play devil's advocate here. So is this like we're going to sit around the campfire, singing Kumbaya and visualizing what we want and magically it appears? Is that what we're saying here?
Yeah, mostly.
I don't know how to play the guitar, Don.
No, we don't. But, this is where we go internal. This is where we have to start thinking about who am I being? We've probably heard that phrase before. We don't get what we want. We get who we are. What we are is what this says, who we are at a base level. We've got to look inside. When we change inside, it starts to change the dynamics because it's our energy that's impacting our world around us. So if we're going to talk woo-woo, there's the interaction, right? It's when I get bigger, when I get better, when I create what I want, it starts to impact the world that I'm living in because we were laughing the other day and the guy said, well, what do you think you are, the center of the universe? I said, no, not of the universe, just my universe. I mean, it's like it all emanates from here. If I'm not getting better, my world ain't getting better.
Right.
And so really it comes down to the mindset and really becoming, it's attitude, it's our mindset getting focused. It's becoming a student of life, by the way, failure and success. We can learn a lot from failure. We should be. We can learn from a lot of people who have failed. I mean, I like to take Ron used to say all the time, take a poor man out to lunch. He'll enjoy the lunch and you'll get to learn like, what did you do wrong? How did you do this? Right. Yeah. I mean, so we don't get what we want. Unfortunately, we get what we attract through who we are. And I say, unfortunately, only because it would be easier if you just go, hey, I want it. It's not the way it works.
Well, and I think the other reason that's unfortunate, Don, is for a lot of people, the second part of this, attracting what we are, the reason it's unfortunate is because for most people, they allow that to be by default. It's not intentional. It's not strategic. It's not trained. It's not purposeful. It's just happenstance. They are a ship without a rudder going wherever the wind of life takes them. And the opportunity here for everyone listening is this: when we want to make significant change, so maybe, Don, just maybe there's somebody listening here that didn't have as good of a year in real estate as they had hoped to. Just maybe. Possibly. I'm probably not. It's EXP for goodness sakes. But maybe there are a couple of agents that look at this year and go, it just wasn't what I wanted it to be. Right. And on the flip side of that, maybe there's someone looking at it going, you know what? I crushed it this year and I barely know my kids' names. And either way, the point here is when you want to make change, it has to start internally with you. It's not another widget or a potion or a system or a tool or a website or anything else. If you noticed how gullible real estate agents are at buying stuff from vendors who are trying to sell them the next magic potion, pill, or widget, that means they don't have to do the work and they can make the money. And we fall for it as an industry every single time.
Right. Right.
The point here is you have to start internally. Change begins inside of you and me. It's not the business. It's not your systems. Like those may need to change, but the first place we start is internally with ourselves.
Yeah. And I think, Ben, I'm going to add one more to it. You said some people might be crushing it. Some people might not have had the year that they were thinking about. Some people crushed it and have no idea how, which means they can't replicate it, which is another piece to this, right? It's like, we've got to be thinking through how are we purposefully doing what we're doing so that we can replicate it and increase it and compress it and mold it and put it where we want it. When we can do that, we are in charge of our futures.
And that, I believe, that is one of the biggest secrets to success of all time. Now, one of my favorite books forever, I read it every single year, is Napoleon Hill's Think and Grow Rich. I reread it every single year. And every year I read it, I find new things that were there the whole time. I just hadn't moved on in my journey enough to be able to decipher them or grab hold of them. But that's exactly what that book is really speaking to is that you, like you talked about yesterday about becoming a student of your life and business. That book and Napoleon's Principles, mind you, he studied the most successful people the world has ever seen for the book. So it's not his opinion, it's the patterns, traits, and similarities that he saw amongst all of the world's most successful people. And every single one of those people understood that success and change started internally with themselves. They needed to become a student of their own life. They needed to be the director or the cruise captain, if you will, of their own destiny. And they did that through a couple steps. It starts off first by journaling. They all journaled. They all kept notes and track records. Now, I know, Don, you ran Jim Rohn's company for a number of years. You worked with him and knew this man intimately. He had a lot of thoughts about journaling. He kept journals, and you shared something with me the other day that just in a side conversation we were having, and you were talking about how he made some, and clarify if I'm butchering this, but something to the effect of that journals to him were so important because those are the pieces of him that would last long after he was gone. Those are the things his family would have to remember him by. Is that close?
Yeah, he said his library, his photographs, pictures, and of course at that time it wasn't digital, right? It was old style photographs, and his journals. And I can tell you that, the man had a collection of, leather bound. I mean, it's like like you see the successful person's library. It looked like a library, but it was his journals, his thoughts, his ideas, and what he captured from every place that he went, everything that he did, every experience. What did I learn from this? What happened? And he was just a great student of life.
Isn't that an interesting thought? Because I know a lot of people, they hear journaling, Don, and they're like, nope, like the little voice on their shoulders, like, nah, it's not for you. Nope, you're not a writer. Well, what's cool about this, and I've seen Jim speak a couple of times, like recorded, of course, but I saw him speak and present a couple of times on journals recently, and he was talking about the fact that there's no right or wrong way to do it. Like some of his journals, literally, he'd have a thought pop into his head and he would just write it. It wasn't like a Dear Diary thing. He was just using this as a central place to collect his thoughts so that he could go back to it later and pull it together when a season demanded that kind of knowledge or aha or learning opportunity. But even more so, he talked about it being a barometer for him to look back and chart the course of his personal growth. He could see where he was at that point in time that year, what he was wrestling with, and then compare it to today, how he's grown so much, he wouldn't wrestle with that specific thing anymore. Now he's on new obstacles and challenges that he's wrestling with. And so journaling is one absolute key trait of those uber successful people.
Yeah, and what you're describing reminds me of when I was a kid and my dad used to put the ruler on top of my head at the door jamb and then draw, a pencil mark and go, that's where you are today at 6 years old and 7 years old and 8 years. And the journal is a great way for us to be able to look back, see our own growth, most importantly, to capture greatness and to be able to go back to and go, there was that experience that I had last fall when I did blah, 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 and go back and it's like, here were my thoughts. Here was what I learned from it. I don't have to do that again. And so again, whether you take that now in a written journal, which I firmly believe is certainly cool, but I got to tell you, I've given into the dark side. I've got my Remarkable. So, that's another way of doing it. But I've also got my Jim Rohn journal here. So, I think that we need to find some way of capturing our life.
Absolutely. And another quote of his, as we're going and segueing into the actual success formula next, one other thing he said, and again, I'm paraphrasing, but it's close. He said that you can always get more than you have because you can become more than you are. And what he's referencing is this process of becoming, this process of personal growth and development that is absolutely a requirement of success. You will not see too many. You might see somebody that wins the lottery. The chances of them having money, it's like 70+% of the people within 3 years are flat broke again. Yeah. So if you didn't have to learn how to become the person that would earn and attract the wealth and keep it, there's no way you were going to have it for very long. It's going to leave as fast as it shows up. So outside of those situations, you're going to be hard pressed to find a lot of successful people who build wealth, have success, and sustain it over time that didn't go through the process and pay the price of the journey of who they were becoming. And so my question for everyone watching is, who are you becoming? Right now, who are you becoming? Now, the really painful part, and I did this with a coaching client last year, is this person had one idea of who they were becoming. I asked their spouse.
Wow.
There was a massive difference there because in the mind of the person, they were going one direction. In the eyes of their spouse, who also, mind you, knew them very, very well, thought they were going a completely different direction. So who are you becoming? You can't get to where you're going without knowing first where you're starting from. Who are you becoming? What journey are you on? And for some people listening, maybe you're hearing this and you go, man, like I really don't do a lot of this stuff. That's okay. It's a starting point. And for others of you, maybe you're on this path and you look back and you go, man, I am way different today than I was 6 months or a year ago. That's perfect. I'm still not where I want to be. That's okay. You're making forward progress. Who are you becoming? It's an integral part of success. Now, what we understand and what we were alluding to there is that success is a process. A lot of people, Don, think success is an event. Like I'm just going to do one thing and I'm going to arrive. I'm going to be there. I'm going to nail it. I'm going to have the car, the boat, the money, all the things. I'm just going to do, it's going to be one thing. And again, when you look back of history's most successful people, I don't know of any example where that showed up. No. It's a process.
It is. And I think what goes along with that is even as we look around agents in our own company and we think about them as being so successful, but we don't realize the depth of their experience and we see them as instant overnight successes. I know I've been called that. I know you've been called that. It's like, it's never instant. It's never overnight. It's never as easy as it looks. I was watching a YouTube the other day of Ed Sheeran, huge pop star, right? I was watching him at 16 years old get turned down for a play. He was in the top 140, then the top 40, and eventually they go, no, you're not in. And there he is, 16 years old, bounced out, going, you know, he wasn't crying, but he was close to crying. And what do we see? 7 years later, he hits the pop charts and is a gazillionaire today, right? And all of that was instant and overnight. But Ben, it's never instant and overnight. It's a process.
100%. And the visuals that I love for this, and you and I actually use this with our company that we're building at Success Coaching. We use this with our coaches the other day on a coaches call because there's a lot going on in our world and in building this, and it's wonderful. It's all great things. We use the analogy of the duck on the pond. And from the surface, the duck is still and calm. But if you went underwater, all that's happening is chaos, and the feet are just doing this and paddling and going crazy, right? So oftentimes we look at successful people and all we see is above the water. We see this calm, easygoing, like it's, oh, yeah, see, just showed up. It just happened. We don't have the perspective to see what was happening beneath the surface. The same as the iceberg adage that we see the top 10% and there's 90% floating beneath the surface that we can't see. We can't judge other people based on their success because in this formula, the success is one component. The process is a whole additional component. And without the process, the success was not likely. So for a lot of people that are going through this, maybe Don, and they're really struggling, they're putting in the work. I know a lot of agents wrestle with the fact they hit this income ceiling or this achievement ceiling and they can't seem to break through no matter what they do. They keep doing the same number of units every year, or they keep doing the same commission dollar every year, whatever it is, but they can't seem to bust through that one thing. And it's frustrating. I've been there.
Sure.
It's frustrating. I get it. I'm not downplaying that. My point, though, is that as long as you keep moving, you're not losing. You can't beat someone who won't quit. This is a process, and success rewards those who stick with it. Success comes to those who persevere, not to those who quit. Now, there is a book that we like called The Dip, Seth Godin, and he talks about the fact that winners quit all the time. So I wanted to make a small little point here, because when I say persevere and success rewards those who don't quit, and you can't beat someone who doesn't quit. Winners quit all the time. The difference is they know what to quit. They're measuring effectiveness of what they're doing. And when they see something isn't producing results, they quit that thing. They don't quit the process. They quit that strategy. They don't stop forward progress or momentum. There's a big difference there. So winners quit, but they quit pieces of the plan and then they adjust and go a different direction. They don't throw their hands up and say, see, I told you it wouldn't work. Oh, see, Don, global pandemic. This is why I can't have a successful real estate business this year. Oh, guess what? We have some agents in this company who are having the best years of all time. Some agents in this company are doing more production than most small brokerages. Yeah. So don't tell me that outside influence and world events have any direct influence over what happens in your business. The one thing that you and I've seen to be true over all these years in real estate, this is my 16th year in real estate. The one thing I've seen to be true every time is that people, agents who are committed to this process, committed to self-improvement and development, working towards their achievement of whatever they define success to be, they make money in any market. Hey, opportunity is never lost. It's always found by someone, right? Totally. So it's, are you looking for that opportunity? And the best way I know on how to spot the opportunity is to be on this journey and in this process of becoming the best version of you that you can be.
Hey, let me say one thing to add on to what you're putting out that's so important. And that is, we've got people that are thinking about the pandemic. That's kind of on our minds. Why? Because it's every freaking day in front of us, right? And so we can't miss it. But what I can say is this: after the pandemic, whatever returns into the next normal thing that we do, and we get back to some sense, there's always the economy, and we can always use the economy as the excuse. There's always, a downturn, an upturn. Let me give you a thought. The outside world, the outside income stream of the United States or whatever country you're watching this in, that has nothing to do with you. That you can have your own personal economy, that you're building your own reality in the midst of no matter what's going on. I think you and I were laughing. You and me and somebody the other day was talking about we've survived all the presidents. We've survived all the presidents. We've survived all the downturns. We've survived all of them. We're still here. The United States is still here. So I think we have to be careful about what we give so much power to, because we are in charge. We are empowered with the what we can do to make our life better.
Without question. Without question. So we know success is what we're all striving for. We've gone through the process of understanding what it is. We've a little bit touched on what failure is, what we want to avoid. So we're going to turn the corner now and because we're focused on success. You coming through this journey with us of this multiple part series over the course of the next few months, we want you to identify what success means to you and then be able to utilize that information to practically structure your life and business. And so what we know is there's a formula for success, just like there's a formula for failure. And the formula for success is a few simple disciplines practiced every day.
Did you say there was a formula for sex? Did you say that?
There is, but that's a different webinar, Don.
Is that part 4?
That's part 5. That's the bonus. So the formula for success, it's a few simple disciplines practiced every day. Now, this again could be its whole own webinar. We're not going to go there because we don't have time today, but this is really referring to habits. That's another word for disciplines, right? So it's doing a few simple things every day, consistently. Now, Waitley said this, and I want to share this, and then I want to get your thoughts on this because I know that you worked with Rohn a lot on this stuff. Waitley said this in a Jim Rohn seminar, by the way, which I thought was good. He said, all disciplines affect the others, those that you practice as well as those that you neglect, both good and bad. So all of our disciplines, you understand that by saying we don't have disciplines doesn't mean that we don't actually have disciplines. It just means we're allowing the negative ones and we're allowing life by default instead of really getting strategic and designing the life we want. We all have disciplines. Every single one of us has habits and patterns. The challenge is a lot of them have become so ingrained, they're unconsciously done by us. We don't even really know that we're doing them. So the formula for success is saying, what are those, you have to identify what are those few simple disciplines that you can intentionally, consciously, strategically do every single day, that just like failure stacks by a bunch of little decisions, success is the exact same way. It's a bunch of little things, little disciplines stacked on top of each other that culminate into a really beautiful outcome. What are your thoughts on this, Don?
Well, first, you're dead on. Failure is not some giant cataclysmic event. Neither is success. It's built through time. I love the words you use. Habits is really important. And I think about the fact that we are creatures of habit. I mean, a lot of people, I hear this all the time, especially in coaching, I'm just not good at changing my habits. I need to create some new habits. It's all around habits. You're a genius at habits. You have absolutely created habits. Your life is a habit. The way you brush your teeth in the morning. I guarantee if you were to look at your life, there are so many habitual behaviors you have. You just haven't done it, as Ben was talking about, consciously. And I think that is really the key, Ben. What are the conscious habits that will really get us to the life that we want? Let's make that list of those things that we've always gone, if I were just a little more, if I would just do even more about this. And of course, it may be more, it may be just a different thought process. I'm not suggesting more is the answer always, because more of the wrong thing ain't going to help. And I use that word ain't just for a point. I want to make sure everybody knows that I know it ain't. But I think that the habits that we form, are, as you said so well, perfectly, they come through mostly unconscious behaviors. And we've just evolved into the life we have instead of evolving into the life we want, right? So I think that we've got to really consciously start making choices, because we are in charge. We live in a cause and effect world. We're a big part of the cause. I'm not leaving God out here, but I'm just saying in the physical presence, we're the ones who create.
Well, and Donna, you said something there I wanted to go into, because we've talked about this in some of our private coaching with some of our Pinnacle clients. But one thing we know to be true, and you said it really, really well, and I want to spend a little time here if you're okay with it. You said that our habits are formulated essentially by our environment, right? They come in subconsciously and they're ingrained in us. And Jim Rohn had a saying, something about the 5 people. You want to share that with everybody? Because I think this ties in here beautifully, and I want to make a point here.
Sure, absolutely. And of course, many people have heard this or heard it from somebody else. But Jim said we are the 5 people that we hang around the most. We are influenced by somebody. And of course, he also added a couple of thoughts to that. One is, what are those people doing to you? Now, this is not victimhood, but to say, what is that influence that they're having on you? And is that okay? Most of us never give thought to who we hang around with. That we just do and hang around with our family and friends and all that's great. But are you making conscious choices about those that are going to elevate you and hold you to a higher level, who have higher standards, where you go, wow, where their incomes are higher, and you go, wow, I could do that. I mean, look at what they're doing. And we get around people like that and our life starts to expand. So the 5 people we're around, then it's a big deal.
Well, and so I want to talk about this, because it is an absolutely massive, massive deal. And Jim was spot on. If you look in your own life and your business, we've asked you a couple of questions throughout this. What do you want your life to look like? Right? Who are you becoming? Well, guess what? You can ask those same questions of the people you spend the most time with. And my guess is your answers are pretty darn close. Okay. Because birds of a feather flock together. There's a huge correlation between the success of those people that you spend time with and your own, who you're becoming and who they are becoming. And it doesn't mean you cut people out of your life completely, but it may mean for you to get the success you want, you need to audit how much time you're giving to those specific relationships. And this is a hard thing for people.
It is.
It's a really hard thing. And I want you to hear me clearly. You will never surpass the level of success by and large of the people that you spend the most time with. Again, it doesn't mean you cut them out, but if you're the smartest person in the room, you're in the wrong room. You've got to get to a place with bigger thinkers. We've got EXPCon coming up. If you're not going to EXPCon yet, if you haven't registered, what the crap are you waiting for? Like, you get the chance to be together with some of the biggest producers, biggest thinkers in the country, and you haven't registered yet? Like, where else do you get that opportunity? Oh, that's all right. I'm a big fish in my little pond in my market. That's great. Get yourself out of your pond. Go get into where you're a minnow in the ocean. That's where you're going to grow. That's where your mind is going to be opened up. And that's where your process of who you're becoming really will begin.
Yeah, and I would say to that very point, I'm glad you brought that up, because that event's only 2 weeks out. And I will say this to everybody, you're going to see people up on stage, but they're available. They're walking through the hallways. You're going to, if you go and you go with friends, guess what? You could hang out with your friends, but you can hang out with your friends anytime. You can hang out with the people from your city anytime. Go hang out with people that you don't get to be around, because there are some people that are making some serious coin. We're building some serious businesses. and have created just an immense wealth. I mean, whether it be on the real estate side or on the agent attraction side, I mean, we're seeing things that have never been done in any real estate company in history. Go hang out with those people.
Absolutely. Now, Don, we haven't talked about this, but there is something, a tool I was given a long time ago. None of it is my original, so I'm just going to tell you that now. I'm not claiming ownership of it. However, it's a list of questions that I was given by two mentors. One of them's name is John Maxwell, but I was given a list of from two mentors of questions they ask people whom they are wanting to grow from and learn from and benefit in being relationship with. So these are powerful questions. So I'm going to make an offering to everyone listening here. If you want that list of questions, we'll compile it. We'll email it to you, no problem. Email coaching@success.com and put questions in the subject line, and we will send that back to you. So coaching@success.com, put questions in the subject line, and our team will get those questions back to you. But a bottom line, I would use those at EXPCon. I would find somebody. Can I buy you coffee? Can I buy you lunch?
Yep.
And I'm going to ask them questions, what they're reading, what do they spend their time doing, where are they growing, what's impacting their business, what are they wrestling with right now? Like, I can learn so much by asking powerful questions, but it starts by identifying what are the disciplines that they practice every day.
Every single day. Yep. Don't ask the small talk, do the big talk, right? It's a great opportunity. Ben, that's so awesome that we've offered that. I'm glad. Thank you for thinking of that, because I think that's going to be magic for these people.
Absolutely. And it works whether it's a big person in your hometown or it's a big person in the world. They all work the same, and we can all learn from other people on their journey of becoming the best version of themselves. We're better together, but we have to be intentional. We have to ask those questions. And in that process, you're automatically going to be surrounding yourself with people that think maybe at a higher level than you do and are having success at a higher level than you are. And that's right where you want to be, I promise you, on this journey of success. So let's keep moving here. Now we're going to talk about time, because we know time is key. It takes time. And Dawn, you and I, we were talking about this. You've coached longer than I have. I've coached for 11 plus years, a little over 9,000 hours. One thing that comes up a lot is when people are on this path, they're all excited in the honeymoon phase. They set their goal, they have their plan, they begin working their plan, and it's like New Year's resolution. Shortly thereafter, the energy starts to wane, right? And specifically with real estate agents, we set these huge, lofty goals, which is wonderful. The problem is we don't give the plan enough time to be fully executed. We want instant results. We are a Pop-Tart society. We expect it yesterday and now would be okay. And the problem is, here's what I just hate to tell you, the journey of becoming who you need to become in order to attract that what you want, that's the success formula, those disciplines and habits, it takes time. And there is no shortcut. There's no silver bullet. There are also, like we said before, no overnight successes. This is why, because it takes time. So make sure that you're not abandoning your plan or your process or your becoming journey because it's not happening in the time you think it should. Be open to the fact that it takes time and be present in the moment along the journey, because that's where the growth really happens.
Hey, Ben, let me jump in to say this. You know, we liken it and we say that it happens with time. It takes time. It does take time, but we don't get paid for time, right? So that's really an interesting thing, right? It's kind of a twist. We get paid for value. It takes time to deliver that. It takes time to build us. It takes time to do these things, but we don't get paid for the time, right? We get paid for who we're becoming. We get paid for the value we bring. We get paid for what we do through time. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
And I think that's where people will get confused. They're sitting at their desk going, I'm working 12 hours a day. Doing what? I mean, doing what?
Yeah. Well, and so Don, you and we've used this before in trainings together as well. So it's the busy versus productive.
Sure.
Right. So if you're listening, you have a sheet of paper or a pad or something, or your neighbor, you can write on them too, but just write a circle and then a smaller circle inside of it. It looks like a donut. You don't have to be an artist. Write a big circle and then a little circle inside of it. And in the big circle, you write a B. And in the small circle in the middle, you write a P. Well, obviously B stands for busy. P stands for productive. And the challenge with most entrepreneurs is they don't differentiate between which tasks are busy work and which are productive. And for some, it's because they don't have clarity on what their goals are. And so how could you measure or know which is busy versus productive? And for others, it feels good to be busy. And so we stay in that outer circle. We spend 80% of our or more of our time in busy work, not actually accomplishing anything. And so we get home and our significant other will ask us, so how was your day? What'd you do? And you're like, well, I don't know. I was really busy. That's a problem. I would tell you right now, that's a problem. If you couldn't specifically say, I accomplished these 3 or 4 things, you probably are spending more time in busy work than in time that's productive. And so, yes, it takes time. You need to understand how you're allocating that time. What's getting your time? What are you giving your time to? That's one of the most important distinctions here in my mind. This time element is absolutely huge.
Well, we're going to dive deeper into that. That will be most of. I'm trying to remember back, but as I remember, that's most of our second class in this series.
Yes.
And so we're going to take a deep dive on that, because to me, the use of time is essential. I mean, we have to do it better. We have, we got these moments, and there ain't any more. We can get more money. We can get a lot of extra stuff. We can't get more time. And so for that reason, we're going to spend time on that and make sure that people have some different ways of thinking about it. But I want to go back to this idea of bringing a value to the marketplace, because, Jim Rohn was famous for that. That was one of the things he said. We have to bring value to the marketplace. I remember one of the questions he used to go through this whole series, is it possible to be twice as valuable? I mean, could you be 3 times as valuable? I mean, could you, and today 3x, 5x, whatever, 10x, but could you become that? Is it possible that somebody is making 50,000 a year, somebody else is making 5 million a year, that you could become that much more valuable? And that's really where I think we need to spend, some time here, is really talking about that, because what we know is we don't get paid for time, not in our business. So you get paid in a job sometimes for time. We think we do, but you still get paid for value. We just liken it to hours, right? I work 40 hours. We never get paid for, and then that's why people don't get raises and grow in an organization, because they think it's about the hours. It's not. It's about value. I was reminded of that. I'm reminded of that ship. There's a story of these 2 guys that own this massive yacht, 160-foot yacht, and the engines fail one day in port, and they can't get it out of port. So they call some experts, and they bring the experts in, and nobody can fix it. Nobody can find out what's wrong with this thing. And they finally get this old man who's been doing this fix, of ships since he was a little kid. And he brings his bag of tools in. He's there for a couple of hours, looking around, studying things, and eventually takes out a little teeny hammer, and he just taps something, and the engines go on. I mean, the engines are on, right? So they're amazed. They thank him, and he takes off, and of course he sends the invoice. The invoice comes to them, and it's $10,000. It's $10,000, right? And they go, please justify this $10,000, right? And he said, well, it's $2 for the hammer and the tap, and $9,998 for knowing where to tap, right? It's the knowledge. You got to understand that we're bringing value to our marketplace, not just for going through the motions, not just for doing what we automatically do. It's really about creating value. So thanks for moving that to value. I think this is a big part for everybody. We are all in real estate. We do similar things, but are you thinking through, how do I show up and bring more to my clients? By the way, if I'm in the agent attraction, to my agents, how do I bring more to my business, to my life? Even, by the way, to the people in my life, the family, friends, kids, spouse, significant others, those people. How do I bring more value? Because it ain't time, it's value.
Yeah, and this is huge on so many levels. We just this Success Line podcast. If you aren't subscribed to it, you need to check it out. It's an awesome format. We coach people live, real time, on the call. And the one that just dropped yesterday, the newest episode, her name is Maria. She's in Mexico, and she was going down this path. And I'll let you listen to the episode, but this is exactly what we talked about. and that you have to be able to bring more value to the marketplace, and people will follow you. They'll buy from you. They'll be loyal to you versus anyone else. Even if there are other discount brokers out there, even if someone is somebody's family or friend, even if, when you provide enough value, nothing else matters. Cost is only an issue in the absence of value. So the question for you to ask yourself right now, as we're going through this, again, another question for the series for you to be journaling about: how can you listening and watching, how can you become more valuable? Or in other words, how can you deliver more value to your marketplace? Well, that's what we get paid for, is delivering value. You want to increase your earning, increase the value you're giving to your marketplace.
Listen, Ben, we've heard the phrase servant heart. Clearly, that is a way. When you come from a place of service, when you come from a place of giving more, that's a good start. That's a great start. But again, compared to what? That's where it gets really tricky. I would also say, are you always thinking about how you can provide value beyond real estate? Can you connect people? Can you bring value in some other way? I found somebody for your company. Like when you start to be a value bringer, there's a lot of places to do it. And it's not in just the traditional real estate sense. And I'm going to tell you, there's one other piece to this, which kind of, rings really true for me. And my history, but I had, a long history in branding, personal branding of agents. And so one thing I'll tell you, if you want to build value, do we pay more or less for brand names? That's right, more for brand names. Well, part of building value and having people feel really great about you is when you're a brand. I was just down in South Carolina, as you know, for a few weeks, and there's an agent in, you may know the guy. It'll come to my mind in just a second. He's an Atlanta agent, and now he's got, he owns the Atlanta market. He's got billboards all over the streets, the freeways, the highways, everywhere. And then he moved to he just expanded into South Carolina, and there's billboards for him all over the place there. And then I just heard from a friend of mine in Orlando, signs all over the place, and people are calling him and saying, hey, come list my property. Why? Because he's created a sense of value. We don't know who's good and who's not good, but we do have to provide value once we get the client, right? Marketing is how we get the clients, then we have to provide the value on the backside. So marketing is value before. There's also marketing during. How do I communicate? How do I keep in touch? What are my systems? You and I were chatting about this the other day, and maybe it was in an EXP webinar we did. And that is that there are agents who are right now about to face, in the changing market, a little softer market, they're about to face listings that, oh my gosh, are on the market for 3 weeks.
Wait, 90 days? Are you kidding me? Yeah.
What do I do with 3 weeks, 5 weeks, 8 weeks? I don't have enough stuff to deliver. I don't have anything to, what have you done for me lately? I don't know. I don't even know what to do with it. It was supposed to sell after 3 days, right? And we don't have a clue. So we've got to start figuring out where our value systems and what are we going to do to increase our value in the marketplace. So people talk about us. Branding gets us in the door. Delivering value keeps them coming back and keeps you in their door again and again and again. And I think systems is part of it. Marketing is part of it. Listen, we have a chance to create value videos. I mean, Ben, you're famous for shooting so much video. Listen, content for your clients right now, what a great way to deliver value. What a great way for people to see you as the expert, the authority. Oh my gosh, that's our realtor. That's our realtor. We're all puffing up, right? That's our realtor. Well, guess what? Most people don't have that impression of their realtor.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And when you become a dime a dozen, you're a commodity, and commodities are traded at bargain basement prices. You've got to stand out. So we're gonna move on to our last piece. We're gonna have to cut it short, Don. So we'll just move the rest of it to the part 2. But we do have some more here. I just wanted to give a shout out to Stephanie Stovall. My email is blowing up now with questions as the subject line. I'm scrolling twice to get through it. But Stephanie was the quick draw. She was like seconds after we said it. So kudos to you, Stephanie. We'll definitely get that out to everyone. So as we're coming to the end of our time, we want to talk about one last topic, and this is actually going to be a good place for us to leave today in order to pick up on our next one, which you'll get details about here shortly. But we're talking about limitations, limits and limitations. Now, limits and limitations, a couple key things here. Limits and limitations absolutely are real. They absolutely are real things. And they absolutely can be used as excuses. So we want to spend a little bit of time here as we're wrapping up today, talking about the difference between limits and limitations. Now, here's what I would have you write down. And Dennis Waitley said this, and I thought this was really, really great. He said, limits are physical. Limitations are psychological. Limits are physical. Like, let's talk about the COVID. When it first happened, shutdown. A lot of us couldn't work. We were deemed non-essential, or we couldn't go to the office. That is a physical thing. That is a limit, right? You can't argue that. It just is. You can't control it. That's a limit. A limitation is saying, okay, because of that limit, I can't work at all.
Done.
There's nothing I can do.
Right.
And that's a dangerous place to find yourself in. So make sure you're distinguishing between limit and limitations. Limits will show up in life and on your journey of becoming and on your journey and your path to success. Limits will show up. You don't have to allow them to become limitations. And so there's a quote here that we want to share. Oops, sorry, I went too far. Here we go. This is Dennis as well. He says, you'll never outgrow limitations. You'll only set new ones within which you must live. You'll never outgrow them. You're always going to set new ones within which you must live. So the question then begs to be answered, then why set any at all? And this goes back to Don's comment from the beginning of our talk today. I want you to think unreasonably, without limitation, without ceilings, without anything. What do you want your life to be? What do you want your life to become? Then we go to, what does your business have to look like or become in order to support you achieving those things in life? And then all of a sudden we find ourselves on this journey called personal growth and development, moving towards the success that we desire. So Don, any last thoughts here before we give them information for part 2 of this and we send them on to their day?
I think related to this particular subject, I'll just finish by saying, check your beliefs, because literally the limits are in your, it's between your ears. This is where we get stuck. We're the lock. The good news is we're also the keys, right? We've got the keys. We've many times used the excuses. We've gotten into the pattern, the habits, and we give up on ourselves. And a lot of that has to do with our programming. Somewhere back in your storied past, somebody said something that gave you those impressions, those beliefs. It might have been personal, might have been somebody saying something about you that you believed. It might be something that was said in society that you took on. But I'm going to tell you to between now and the next time we see you, be really looking at the decisions you're making, the choices you're making, the things you're doing, and really, are you making decisions based on the past or based on the possibilities, which is the future, and not limited, by the way, Ben, not limited. Rohn said, years ago, it's not what happens that determines the quality of your life. It's what you do with what happens. So we're going to do a lot more with the doing part as we get into the time, the planning, the structure. And then we've got 2 more after that, right? We've got 4 parts of this thing. So we're going to really be digging in. It's all about building a big business. So, thanks. You've done an incredible job. Thanks for all that you shared today. We're going to talk about the next one coming up.
Yes. And likewise, Don, these are always a blast to do. We are so grateful to EXP for asking us to be here. And if you got value out of this, if you would comment below with a thumbs up, wherever you're watching, let EXP know that you want to see more of this. We appreciate the opportunity. Part 2 is coming up November 18th, Thursday, 9 Pacific, 12 Eastern, same time as today's was. So first off, put it on your calendar right now. Don't wait. Put it on your calendar to be right here. Join us Thursday the 18th, same time. Also, think through who you know that needs to be on this journey with you, that needs to be on this journey of becoming, that you could bring along. They can watch this replay, even though they weren't here live today, and they can be ready to go for part 2 on Thursday. So with that, we are going to thank you for being here. We hope to see you all at EXPCon. We're going to have a big booth. Don and I will be there. We look forward to meeting every single one of you. Come say hi. We've got some giveaways. We're giving away a remarkable tablet, an Apple Watch, free coaching, all kinds of stuff. Come to the booth to learn more, but we do want to meet you, and we'll see you at EXPCon. Thanks, everyone.
Wait, Ben,
yes.
You're speaking there. Look for Ben's event. Come and see us.
1 o'clock on Thursday.
You're killing it, buddy. I can't wait to see that. So everybody, come on. Let's go see what Ben's up to. He's got some great stuff for you, and let's get to meet there.
Sounds great. Thanks, everyone. See you there.
Bye, everyone.